Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to another quick draft of Ikoria. Just trying to grind out enough gems to get into another one of those strict save and draft challenges, and as you can see I have very little right now, but I have those 2 player draft tokens plus the 5,000 gold to hop into this draft, so we're going to be playing for as many wins as possible in this Ikoria quick draft, as well as a couple strict save and drafts these next couple days. So, out of our opening pack, we have some pretty good options as usual. Definitely not a bad pack 1 here. We have Mythos of Snapdax as our rare. Been a while since I've seen all the Mythoses, so I will have to read through this again, but if I remember right, all of these are at least somewhat playable, something you can definitely try to build around. So everybody chooses 1 artifact, creature, enchantment, and planeswalker, and then sacrifices everything else. And if black-red was spent, you choose the permanents for each player instead. Okay, so if you're in white, black, and red, this is probably pretty solid and limited. If you're in just white here, seems like you definitely really have to build around it. You want to be ideally playing a deck with a lot of just really big threats, so that ideally if you're playing against a more aggressive deck, you're making them destroy several of their little creatures that were trying to beat you down, whereas you get to keep your one threat that matters. Not the craziest rare ever, definitely not always going to be an immediate win. We've got Ominous Seas here, which is pretty solid. We played that in our last deck. A lot of fun to build around. If you have a lot of cycling cards or just a lot of card draw in general, you can trigger this ability somewhat frequently. I have gotten a couple 8/8s in one game with this, but usually just getting one 8/8 can be enough to close out a game if your opponent doesn't have the removal for it. So Ominous Seas, a pretty fun build around here. You do have to draw 8 cards after you play Ominous Seas out, but when you do, you're spitting out an 8/8. And if you have a lot of cycling, you can consistently do that, so pretty fun build around there. We have Charge of the Forever Beast, which is great early game removal. It's a pretty bad draw in the late game because you have to have a second card in your hand to use this as removal. You need to be able to reveal an additional card, reveal a creature there, so really good removal in the early game, but it can be a dead draw in the late game. Still a super solid card overall. And then at common, we don't have much super exciting here, just some solid removal spells like Capture Sphere and Rumbling Rock Slide. I think it's between the rare and these 2 best uncommons here. I'm not so sure about the Mythos of Snapdax. I think you really want to be in white, black, and red for this to be great. Otherwise, this could go just as well for your opponent as it could for you. You have to build around this to have one really big threat to keep after you wipe everything else off the board. And if you're just playing against another mutate deck, it's going to be really bad in that matchup because they're just going to have their one really big mutated threat to where they don't care about sacrificing the rest of their stuff. So because this is pretty dependent on what you're playing and what your opponent's playing, I'm not a super massive fan of this one, so I think I'm going to pass up on the Mythos of Snapdax here and go with either the Ominous Seas for the fun build around if you have a lot of card draw and cycling, or Charge of the Forever Beast as the very solid early game removal. I had a really fun time with our last blue-red kind of cycling deck. I think I'm going to try out the Ominous Seas again, see if we can't spit out some 8/8 Kraken tokens here. Alright. Pack 2, we have Mystic Subdual if we want to continue on with our blue cards here. This is a 2-mana removal spell, but it doesn't completely remove anything, it just shuts off its abilities and only gives it -2 power. It's good enough to shut off like early aggressive cards the vast majority of the time, either with their good abilities or just their 2 power, but obviously pretty bad removal in the late game once your opponent is playing like 6/6s. It doesn't do much. Back for More is a really fun card to build around. There is a black-green Reanimator theme in this set. There are, of course, several cycling cards, and in green and black, those cycling cards can often be creatures. So if you cycle a really big creature like a Greater Sandworm, which is a 7/7 that cycles for 2, you can then bring it back for cheap with Back for More. For 6 mana, you're getting a 7/7 on the board and having it fight something, so it's both a massive threat and a removal spell if you build around it well. So that could be a pick here. We're only on pick 2 here, so I'm not going to get completely married to Ominous Seas, and I think that the blue cards here are not super exceptional, so Back for More is definitely an option here. Zagoth Mamba's solid in a mutate deck if you have enough cheap mutators that -2/-2 will matter by the time you're mutating. Like if you're mutating cards on turn 3, that'll often matter because you kill their little creatures, but if you're not mutating till like 6 mana, then -2/-2 doesn't do much at that point. You want to have a lot of mutators, ideally a lot of cheap ones for the Zagoth Mamba, but that's pretty solid. Best deck in the format tends to be red-white cycling, and Drannith Healer is a super solid card for that because not only is it a 1-mana cycler, those are cards you take really highly for that deck, but it also has a cycling payoff, giving you 1 life every time you cycle, so really, really good in red-white cycling. And there's just solid removal like Pacifism here. I think I'm going to go for Back for More here. I really have a lot of fun in the black-green Reanimator style decks. Although a lot of that was during the Arena Cube, so I don't know how well it'll pay off in Ikoria, but I know there are several cycling creatures that can combo well with this card, and worst case scenario, like, even if we don't cycle something in the early game, casting this very late after one of your creatures has died to both get something back and fight something off seems really good. Just a threat and a removal spell all in one. I'm going to take the Back for More, see if we can go for that strategy this time around. Since we have not drafted the green-black Reanimator in this set yet. Wow, these are some really good packs. This is just a powerful set in general. We have Ram Through here. 2 mana to have one of your creatures deal damage equal to its power to something else. If it has Trample, you get to do the extra damage to the controller. Probably the best green removal spell at common here. You don't even have to fight, so your creature's in no danger with this card, so that is really nice. Mutual Destruction is solid removal as well. There are some token producers that'll give you sacrifice fodder for this card, but if you don't have a lot of creature token producers, then this card is not very good. So I don't love Mutual Destruction here. Probably going to roll with the Ram Through. Could also go with Primal Empathy, try to do green, blue, and black here. There are 3 color pairs in this set, as you can see from Zagoth Crystal, and green, blue, black is one of them. I think I'm just going to roll with the Ram Through, though. It's just such a good green removal spell, and ideally in a green-black Reanimator deck, we're going to be taking a lot of really big green creatures, the kind of creatures that will do a lot of work with a Ram Through, and now we have Greater Sandworm, which is kind of the perfect card to combo with Back for More, so I think that'll just be an absolute slam here. Scoop up that Greater Sandworm, although there is also a Jungle Hollow for mana fixing. Everything else here is either weak, like Whisper Squad, or out of color, so I'm probably not going to take any of that stuff. So we'll scoop up a Greater Sandworm here. And yeah, it looks to be paying out because we can get a second Greater Sandworm for consistency here. I like that a lot. There's also Glowstone Recluse, which is one of the better Mutate cards, though. But yeah, I'm going to go with Greater Sandworm with the Back for More over the Glowstone Recluse, as strong as that is. Well, I don't know. Greater Sandworm's also a common, and there are powerful cycling creatures that uncommon we could pick up, like the Titanoth Rex and stuff like that. So hopefully we can get more cards to reanimate more often. Glowstone Recluse is a lot less replaceable. Yeah, you know, I'll go with Glowstone Recluse. It is just a very powerful card. We do have a 1-mana cycler here, but we're not really looking to be a cycling deck. We could run in our deck just to thin out the deck a little bit, basically run a 39-card deck, but that's not super exciting when we have Farfinder here, which is very, very good with Mutate cards, although so is Polywog Symbiote, but I'm definitely leaning towards green-black over green-blue, and ideally only in 2 colors, but if we're in a 3-color pair, green, blue, and black will work together well. Lead the Stampede, if you have a million creatures in your deck, can be good, but we already have Back for More and Ram Through that aren't creatures. I think I'm going to take Farfinder here. I mean, it's a good card in any deck, especially when you can mutate onto it with that Vigilance on whatever you've mutated. So with Glowstone Recluse, that's going to be good, and green-black, we're likely to have some mutate, even if it isn't the core of our deck. Obviously going for green-black Reanimator here, although, I mean, Polywog Symbiote does also combo well with Back for More, because it allows us to draw a card, discard a card whenever we mutate, could fuel the grave there, but I prefer to stick to a little more consistent, just like 2-color strategy here if we can, unless we get a boatload of mana fixing, and Farfinder is going to be the first mana fixing that we find. Polywog Symbiote, also the kind of card, because it is a 2-drop, and it gives you cost reduction on mutate cards, it's the kind of card that you want to get out as quickly as possible. So you want to consistently play it on turn 2, so it's not the greatest card to splash in. So for like green-black splash blue, that doesn't work well, but we could be green-blue splash black here, just splashing in like the Back for More, and that would be the best potential for the Polywog Symbiote. Here I think I'll take the Bristling Boar, although Proud Wildbonder is also an option. We don't have any trample yet, but we could start drafting a lot of it. We can play this even if we're not in red, just for 2 green and 2 as a 4/3. They're very comparable in size for sure. It's just which ability do we like more? A little bit harder to cast the Proud Wild Bonder, but potentially a little bit better of an ability if we have a lot of Tramplers here. Yeah, I'll go with the Wild Bonder. I guess it also doesn't work with Mutate cards because Wild Bonder is a human. We already have one Mutate card, but there are also some tribal cards that care about having humans and non-humans, which Wild Bonder would be good with. Do we want to take just the Mutate card, or do we want to take the potential Trample Synergy card? Is the question here. I guess we'll go with the Trample Synergy. We do have a Ram Through, so that's another card that rewards us for having a lot of Tramplers in our deck. So by having those two cards together, we can start potentially taking the Tramplers highly. Now we have a Corpse Churn, mill 3, then return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, so it feels the grave for back for more. And it's a May ability, so if we want to reanimate something with back for more, we don't have to put that back into our hand. Hopefully we mill 2 creatures off of this though, and then pick up the cheaper one. Survivor's Bond, another card that's going to be good if we have a lot of stuff in our graveyard by milling ourselves, or just late in the game. We can return 2 cards with this if we have a human and non-human in our graveyard, so good with the Proud Wild Bonder as our first human here, and we'll want to take more, have a good mix of the two. Does make the Mutate cards a little harder to mutate onto things if we have a lot of humans in our deck, but it will make cards like Survivor's Bond stronger, so we'll see where we end up there between a lot of non-humans or a decent mix between the two. Don't really like Gloom Pangolin or Mysterious Egg here. I guess I could take a Wingfold Terran just in case. We do end up going a little blue here. And Zagoth Crystal for the same reason, although Almighty Brushwag does have a decent ability to mutate onto. Does have Trample, and that's not that expensive of a pump ability. 4 mana to give +3/+3 till end of turn. Kind of like rolling with the Brushwag here. Just mutating like a Glowstone Recluse onto that. The Recluse would be a 4/5 reach Trample, and then 4 mana to give +3/+3 till end of turn. That could really bash in well. It also has Trample to work with Ram Through and Proud Wild Bonder. Yeah, I think I'm in for an Almighty Brushwag here. And this is a pretty easy Jungle Hollow. It's always nice to get the dual lands that are on color pretty late in the pack. Could take another Corpse Churn here to combo with our little bit of a graveyard theme. Now we'll have 2 Corpse Churns. They do work together a little bit. They both like fueling the grave, work with our back for more well, and our Survivor's Bond, so that could be fun. Worst case scenario, we just end up cutting it. Hail the Almighty Brushwag. Good to see you streaming again. How's it going, Velden? Yeah, I'm trying to get back into streaming. I figured since I end up just doing a recording session every Sunday, I'll just start streaming the recording sessions as well. But then I remembered why I stopped streaming, because when I started I was dropping like a million frames. I definitely had to lower the bitrate a ton here, but hopefully it's all working out well now. But yeah, I dropped like 20% of my frames before I rebooted the stream. So internet's being a bit of a jerk right now. Hopefully that doesn't pan out too poorly for us. So what do we have here? A lot of great options. We have the Zagoth Triome, which is going to be a green-black dual land that also cycles for us, even if we don't end up playing blue, which is pretty solid. I don't think any of the blue cards are strong enough to want to push in on blue immediately here. And if we're taking a card in green or black, there's just the Fog effect, not that good. Combat Trick, not that great. There's just like Dark Bargain here, which will probably wheel, so I think we're just going to take the Zagoth Triome. But Dark Bargain is a good draw spell for our kind of deck because we get to draw a couple cards and throw one of them into the graveyard, so ideally if we use that and drop a big creature into our graveyard, we potentially back for more it. But we only have one Reanimator spell right now, so we are really looking for Unbroken Bond, which is another one. Ooh, could try out the Emergent Ultimatum here. 7 mana, search your library for up to 3 mono-colored cards with different names and exile them. An opponent chooses 2 of them. Shuffle them into your library. Oh no, an opponent chooses 1 of them. I don't know what happened with my brain there. Shuffle it into your library, and you can cast 2 of them total. Yeah, that's probably going to win the game. I mean, we're going to need to get some more big mono-colored cards, but right now we know we can grab Greater Sandworm at least. Just want to get more big mono-colored creatures. Even just like Cavern Whisperer would be solid there. if we get that later, and that does make the Zagoth Triumph a lot better. Now we're using that blue mana for the ultimatum. Don't have any other mana fixing here, unfortunately, but we do have, I guess, Farfinder to grab an island. But yeah, just the one blue land for now. I think now we take mana fixing to go green, black, blue pretty highly, but Emergent Ultimatum is going to be a pretty fun card to try to cast here. Could be absolutely explosive if it resolves. And this is a great pack. We don't have a lot of removal right now. We have Back for More, potentially fighting a creature off, and Ram Through, so we have those two removal spells, so Blood Curdle's certainly an option. That kills a creature no matter what, even if our creature isn't big enough to fight with it on our other removal spells. Migratory Greathorn's going to be great mana fixing, which is going to be important for casting Emergent Ultimatum, grabbing islands out of our deck whenever we mutate. Chittering Harvester's just a great mutator in general, as well as a big creature to cast off of Emergent Ultimatum, because it is a monocolored card. Definitely a lot of ways to go here. I think Greathorn, Blood Curdle, and Chittering Harvester are all super solid. Think that I'm just going to make sure our mana's like really good and kind of roll with a Greathorn here. It's also common though, so we're likely to see it more often than cards like Chittering Harvester though. But I am really having my fingers crossed here for one of the big, like, uncommon cycling cards, like the Titanoth Rex, for our other big cards to grab off Emergent Ultimatum. We'll see how it pans out here. Ooh, Skull Prophet's like perfect for this deck. It helps you mill yourself, and it helps you ramp up. 2 mana for a 3/1, taps for mana, or it mills 2 cards. So super good there. It's also a human, so it gives us another card to pick up with Survivor's Bond. Gives us some more humans and non-humans in the deck. Fertilid is pretty great here. Can help us mana fix for that blue mana for Emergent Ultimatum. Helps us ramp into the ultimatum, and by being a creature with +1/+1 counters on it, it'll get a lot bigger when we mutate onto it. Do see a pretty late Snare Tactician for any bots that are drafting cycling here. And this pack is not super awesome. Yeah, we just kind of have a combat trick or a draw spell, Lead the Stampede. Want to have a lot of creatures in deck for Lead the Stampede. We only have 8 right now. Don't think Lead the Stampede's going to be great here unless we get a ton of creatures, but at the same time, I also don't think I'm really the kind of deck that wants to play just a combat trick. We're going to try to ramp into some really big spells and overwhelm our opponent rather than get incremental value by slamming in with smaller creatures and trading up with combat tricks. Yeah, I'll just throw Lead the Stampede in the sideboard if we do end up with another stack of creatures, just enough of them to use the card well. We have Imposing Vantasar here. That's a 1-mana cycler we could end up reanimating with something. Even though it's off color, we can just run it in here to cycle it for 1. And every now and then we won't have anything else to bring back, so we might as well, back for more on a Vantasar. So that's something. Evolving Wilds or Greater Sandworm. Do they have to be different names? Yes, 3 monocolored cards with different names. So Greater Sandworm doesn't combo with the Emergent Ultimatum here, unless we've already drawn a Sandworm, but it does still make our reanimation spells a little more consistent. Still only have the 1 reanimation spell though. But yeah, I still like the Sandworm here. As good as Evolving Wilds would be for fixing our mana, now we have a Triome, a Farfinder, and a Fertilid, and a Migratory Greathorn. I think we're doing pretty solid on mana fixing. That I can take another Greater Sandworm here. And I'll definitely take the Dark Bargain here, the perfect kind of draw spell for this deck, because we draw cards and throw a little bit into our grave. Now, we have Mysterious Egg, I guess. We're not mutating that much, so I don't think that's exceptional. Could take a second Dark Bargain, which would be fine. Or an Adventurous Impulse, that's like a 1-mana little draw spell, grabbing a creature land from our top 3. Yeah, just Dark Bargain or Impulse here, a random little draw spell either way. I think I'll go with another Dark Bargain. Green, black, white crystal. Don't think I'll be playing that, so I could just go with Swiftwater Cliffs here in case we splash in a little bit of red. Not super likely, but it's possible. I guess the crystal still like ramps us into our big spells as well as giving us white mana, so every now and then we could cast Phantasar. Since the whole thing where draft bots don't know milling was a strategy in Eldraine, quick drafts always leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. How good do you think the bots are? I think there's still issues with the bots every time. Like, they're never going to be able to figure out exactly what the best decks in the formats are. So I think that they still sometimes underdraft like the cycling deck in this format, but I don't think it's been anywhere near as bad as Eldraine quick drafts were. That was definitely the worst quick draft format by far. So yeah, I don't feel like it's gotten that bad here. But it's definitely still noticeable. Sometimes you're going to see cards really late that you're like, what? What's going on here? Like, I feel like they still don't draft the one generic mana cyclers highly enough. Like, seeing that Imposing Phantasar with like 4 or 5 cards left in the pack is kind of insane. Alright, this is what I was looking for. Specifically mentioned this card by name a lot. Titanoth Rex. Pretty perfect for this deck. It is an absolutely massive creature to pull out with Emergent Ultimatum. It's also an absolutely massive creature to cycle in the early game and bring back with a Reanimator spell in the late game, like Back for More. And hopefully, in order to make this deck really good, we can also pick up an Unbroken Bonds to have 2 different reanimation spells instead of just the one. But I'm super happy to take Titanoth Rex here. What are we taking it over here? In green-black, not really anything. I guess Migratory Greathorn, the most important card that we're taking it over, because we do want that mana fixing to consistently cast our ultimatum. We have a blue-black duel for mana fixing. We have a dead weight for early removal. We don't have a lot of early removal. Our cheapest removal spells Ram Through, and that also requires us to have a decently sized creature out. So I do actually like Deadweight quite a bit here, because Ram Through isn't even really a turn 2 removal spell. We gotta wait till like turn 4 most often, because we don't have a lot of cheap creatures. I think Deadweight's gonna be pretty important to help us not die to very aggressive decks. We could also, because we are splashing in blue, throw in like a Pouncing Shore Shark, but that's just another mid-game to late-game good mutate card, and I think we're really hurting for ways to interact in their early games, so I think Deadweight's pretty important here. Unbroken Bond, get in my deck. Return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield with a lifelink counter on it. We have 3 really good cycling creatures to consistently be able to cast Unbreakable Bond on turn 5, cycle a Titanoth Rex or one of our 2 Greater Sandworms, and potentially get one of them out on turn 5 with lifelink. Absolutely massive if we can resolve that. We are taking this over a Blood Curdle, which would be good, but I don't think anywhere near as good as Unbreakable Bond because of how synergistic it is with what we've been drafting. And Honey Mammoth gives us a 3rd big creature for Emergent Ultimatum. Skull Prophet gives us another ramp creature as well as a creature to play in the early game, maybe trade off with something on blocks. Also has the Self-Mill. Yeah, Skull Prophet's kind of just so perfect for the color scheme that I'm going to go with another one of that. But if we can manage to pick up a random Honey Mammoth in this last pack, I'd be super happy with that too. Just more big dorks to play once we've ramped up or once we're reanimating them. Another Deadweight seems pretty important to me, although there's also a Thornwood Falls for more blue mana fixing, which is also important here. Now we do have Deadweight and Brushwag for turn 1, a couple Skull Prophets on turn 2. We still don't have a lot of interaction in the early game. Maybe we can go with Thornwood Falls. Hopefully the bots are not taking dual lands super highly. Maybe we can wield the Thornwood Falls here. It's iffy, but I think it's much more likely than wheeling the Deadweight. Again, we have like fun little mid-range mutate cards here, or mid-range little combat trick creatures, but the mana fixing or the early interaction's pretty important, so I'm going to take a Deadweight. Third deadweight. Now I think we have enough to just take another Fertilid and make sure we get that mana fixing. Because Fertilid's also not a super cheap creature, but a cheap enough creature that it helps here in the first 3 turns. Give us something to actually block with. Interesting you talk about dorks right after I join. How's it going, Fat G's? Are you a mana dork? Oh, big dorks. I wasn't talking about mana dorks. I was just like talking about ramping into big dorks. That's true. So Duskfang Mentor, all the mentors are solid, but they're also really slow to use their abilities throwing a bunch of counters on things. So I don't love them. And I feel like we already have a lot going for us in the late game with all these just big old creatures. So I don't think we need to slowly be dumping counters onto our stuff. So I think I'd rather get the Fertilid and ramp up. As well as mana fix. I don't think I'm going to play any of these cards. Blue is definitely our splash, and none of these blue cards are worth splashing. And the green cards are just not very good. I guess possibly we play an Adventurous Impulse, but probably not. So here we have just an early large toughness creature like Mosscoat Goriak or Gloom Pangolin, or we've got that mid-range Mutator. I think these smaller creatures with their big toughness are just not very exciting at all, to the point where I will just take another Mutator here, even though we don't have the biggest mutate theme ever. This is just a solid card. 4/4 Menace, make everybody discard a card. If we throw this onto just like a Farfinder, could do some good things with that. Bristling Boar. Bristling Boar is the really fun combo with Cavern Whisperer. If you mutate a Cavern Whisperer onto Bristling Boar, because Cavern Whisperer has Menace, and Bristling Boar can't be blocked by more than one creature, you now have a creature that can't be blocked by more than one creature, and can't be blocked by 2 or more creatures. So you just straight up have an unblockable Bristling Boar, so that can be fun. And we already have 2 Corpse Churns, 2 Dark Bargains. Bushmeat Poacher wouldn't be the worst in the world here, but we don't have any creature token producers, and we don't have any creatures that bring themselves back from the grave. We just have a couple Reanimator spells, so we don't have anything that works really well with Poacher, although even just off its own effect it can be solid. So we're either going for the potential cute combo of Bristling Boar into Cavern Whisperer, or just the solid card here. I think I want to go with the Bristling Boar. It's rare that we'll get it off, but if we do, we'll have a great time. Very happy to see Dismal Backwater here. Any more mana fixing we can get to help us cast Emergent Ultimatum will be exceptional. Now, just a bunch of stuff we're not going to play. Oh, a white-blue dual land. That would have been really good if it was green-blue. That other one that we were trying to wheel. I guess we just take a Honey Mammoth here. We have multiple ramp cards, 2 Fertilids and 2 Skull Prophets, and multiple Reanimator spells with a little bit of self-mill, so there's several ways we could cheat out a Honey Mammoth a little sooner than you should. So, not the craziest creature ever, but just we've got several ways to make use of it. Not going to play any of these cards. We have a play set of Corpse Churn, so if we really want to consistently churn through some corpses, we can definitely do that. Okay. I don't see anything in the sideboard I want to put in. Maybe the Lead the Stampede. We'll have to see how many creatures we ended up with. 16. That still feels a little low for Lead the Stampede. Lead the Stampede, you want to have like a ton of creatures in your deck. Like even in Limited, you want more than the usual like 16 or 17 you end up with. Probably like 20. You want like half your deck to be creatures, so on average you draw 2, maybe 3 cards out of this. But we're not even at the 20 there for that, so I don't think we're playing Lead the Stampede. Okay. This is going to be a fun deck to play, potentially. Cycle these giant monsters, bring them back early with Unbreakable Bond, or back for more. And if we're not doing any of that, we have multiple ramp cards, casting an Emergent Ultimatum to just grab those creatures out of our deck and cast 2 of them. Yeah, this is a cool deck. I'm really happy with this one here. I think I'm going to cut Adventurous Impulse, hoping that just like Farfinder, Fertilid, Skull Prophet is enough to find us the correct mana. Black-green is always a good time. I agree with that, Velden. Although I haven't done it much in Ikoria just because I haven't done much Ikoria. But I definitely played the black-green Reanimator deck in the Cube, and that was using a lot of the Ikoria cards like Titanoth Rex and Unbreakable Bond together, and that was great. Alright, I'm going to get rid of Adventurous Impulse. Not super sure about the Corpse Churns. Sure, they help mill us, which can be good with our reanimation spells, but at the same time, we have so many decent, consistent ways to reanimate things without needing to screw around self-milling ourselves. And even if we do need to mill ourselves, we have 2 cards that are also ramping us up while milling ourselves. So I don't think I love Corpse Churn here. Although this is also just a good draw in the late game, because if we draw it in the late game, when we have a ton of mana out, we can just spend 2 and pick a Greater Sandworm back up and recast a Greater Sandworm. But at the same time, Survivor's Bond is going to be a better draw in the late game, because then we pick up a Greater Sandworm and a Skull Prophet. Yeah, I think I'll cut Corpse Churns before I cut Survivor's Bonds. I do think that most of the reanimating we're going to do in this deck is going to be after cycling one of these cards, and if we're just cycling one of these cards, we don't need to mill them. Okay, Migratory Greathorn ideally is always going to be cast for 3 mana because we want to mutate this to grab a land. We don't want any planes in this deck just because we have Imposing Vantasar. Imposing Vantasar is just in here to cycle and maybe reanimate. Worst case scenario, it's just a 1 mana draw card, which is fine. So we're going to put it at the 1 mana slot here. But yeah, we don't want planes in here. We'll have to fix our mana base after we cut all the cards we want to cut. I don't know, how many humans do we have here though? Got 3 humans. Yeah, I guess we only have 3 humans, not already. So we don't have a lot to draw 2 off Survivor's Bond. I might even cut both of them, just Corpse Churn and Survivor's Bond. We'll have to see here. But I could see throwing it back in. Because it does dig a little bit. Survivor's Bond doesn't dig at all, so if you don't have any creatures in your grave, it's not going to do anything. But at the same time, my main thing with like the Survivor's Bond is like we're cycling plenty of creatures, so we're always going to have at least 1. Or we'll often have at least 1 in grave. So I think the biggest power of Corpse Churn for us is just bringing back a really big thing in the late game, and Survivor's Bond's a little better at that. Corpse Churn better in the early game because it does mill the cards to where you know you have a creature in grave, so even if we haven't drawn our cyclers yet, we know we're drawing a card off Corpse Churn. I need to cut 1 more card, and then if I want to throw a Corpse Churn back in, we need to cut another. I don't know what I'm cutting at this point. Maybe even Glowstone Recluse, like we're not mutating that much, but I guess Glowstone Recluse, you don't even have to have mutate synergies for this card to be good. It's a 4 mana, turn something into a 4/5 reach at the weakest. Throw that on a Farfinder, you have a 4/5 Vigilance reach. But yeah, we really don't have a lot of mutate here. We have 2 mutate cards total, so Glowstone Recluse is not nearly as powerful as it can be in this deck. I'm definitely keeping in the Vantasar. It looks so out of place here because it is a white card, but all of the 1 generic mana cyclers, just the fact that you can just spend 1, draw 1, just whittles down your deck size in any deck, and our deck actually has ways to use it after just cycling it for 1. Like sometimes maybe we actually just plop it onto the board. That would be like a worst case scenario though. Ideally we have bigger creatures like these larger cyclers. I'm kind of like considering cutting Vantasar just so that the arena makes our land base for us and doesn't throw 3 planes in here, because I'm not going to put a single planes in this deck. Yeah, look at that. Mana base is good now. I'm probably going to toss it back in. This is always the hardest part of deck building, is finding the weakest card in the deck, the card you want to cut the most. It might even be Honey Mammoth here. I don't know. I feel like we have plenty of big creatures even without Honey Mammoth probably. We have Titanoth, 2 Sandworm. I don't know. Honey Mammoth is a lot bigger than most of our creatures, though. Yeah, aesthetically, Vantasar sucks. It's going to make our deck box green, black, blue, white? That's not what the deck is. It's just green, black, blue. The aesthetics. You know what? You've convinced me here. I think everything in our deck is like so solid. Oh no, it's going to be red too? Oh god. Our deck box is going to say that we're 5 colors because we have Wild Bonder. Good lord. Oh my god, I just realized something. Wild Bonder with Titanoth Rex? I want to do that one time. That's going to be absolutely disgusting. Attack with an 11/11 trample. No matter what you block with, I'll just do 11 damage to your face. That's absolutely disgusting. Yeah, 5-color graveyard, I guess, is the deck here. I think I'll cut the glowstone recluse. Honestly, everything in here is like so solid. We could even just like cut one dark bargain, but they're kind of our only card draw. These are like the maybes right now. Guess we don't have great defense against flyers. The Boar and the Whisperer are also pretty mediocre, and they're not doing anything specifically great with this deck. Okay, Vantisard is, you know, a cycler, so that does help. I feel like these three are the cards that do the least synergistic things. But they're all individually super solid cards, and Bristling Boar plus Cavern Whisperer is a super fun combo. But we only have one of each, so it's not like we're going to pull that combo off super often. We do have Greathorn with Mutate as well that I forgot about. I could see wanting the early creatures just have more things to mutate Greathorn onto. So Glowstone Recluse is potentially just the 3-mana 2/3 pretty often, and then we cut either the 4 or 5-mana creature. Because they're kind of in that mid-game area where ideally we're with a Skull Prophet or Fertilid. Ideally by the time we're on turn 4, we're just casting a 5 or 6-mana card instead. So I could see cutting one of these too. I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm so bad at cutting cards. I was ready to make the declaration, and then I immediately was like, no, I like that card. Let's cut the Boar. Cut the Boar. We've got 15 creatures in here, 3 of which are humans, so we have 12 cards we can mutate onto, so Cavern Whisperer is good there. I guess a lot of our creatures are pretty expensive, though, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of our creatures are really expensive. So subtract 5 from that, we have 10 creatures. Subtract 3 because 3 are humans, and we have 7 creatures that are cheap enough to mutate onto. Actually, I'm going to cut Cavern Whisperer and put Boar back in. Alright, bam. Now we need to make sure to make the mana base so that Arena doesn't give us planes. 16 green cards, 9 black cards, and 1 of every other color. We do need blue mana for Emergent Ultimatum, but we don't need red mana because it's on a hybrid cost, and we don't need white mana because we're just cycling Vantisar to draw a card and sometimes bring it back. Yep, Golgari Reanimator today. It's going to be a fantastic time. Blue splash for Emergent Ultimatum, so when we're not reanimating 11/11s, we can cheat them into play, searching them out of our deck. Let's go ahead and turn the card style on the Triome off. I think I just added like 3 more forests, if I'm being completely honest here. Because green's definitely our most important color. Off of our green mana, we can cast Fertilids to grab other colors. We can mutate Greathorns to grab other colors. Skull Prophet is also important for a little bit of mana fixing there. So black, we do want a decent amount of. Maybe we cut 1 more forest, put in 1 more swamp. We have 9 black cards. We have almost twice as many green as black. Do we have any cards that require 2 black mana? Only the Ultimatum. So we only need 1 swamp out most of the time, unless we're casting Emergent Ultimatum. Although we do want to cast Deadweight and Skull Prophet as soon as possible. These are pretty important cards to play as quickly as possible against aggressive decks. Deadweight, Skull Prophet, blocking things. Yeah, I will cut 1 more forest, put in 1 more swamp. But I think I like it like this. I could also see actually cutting down to just 1 island, although the problem there is that the only time we get to cast Emergent Ultimatum is if we've drawn a Dismal Backwater or a Zagoth Triome. By having 2 islands, even if we just draw a single Fertilid, we can grab both islands off this eventually. Or ideally, you know, Fertilid, Farfinder, and Greathorn are all grabbing basics out of the deck. So just being able to cast Ultimatum off of 2 islands instead of an unfetchable land like Dismal Backwater or Zagoth Triumph seems good to me. Yeah, I'm actually going to keep 2 islands in here even though we only have the 1 blue card, just so, because we have so many ways to fetch basic lands, we can get to Emergent Ultimatum off of just basic lands. Yeah, let's run it like this. Golgari Reanimator in the Ikoria draft. Oh, it doesn't say we're a red deck. It just says white, blue, black, green. I'm actually a little bit disappointed about that. I guess it saw the hybrid cost on the red-green card, but saw that we were only playing forests, so they made the the deck color suggestion a little smarter there. Definitely used to say you were playing red if you had a hybrid red card in there. Yeah, it didn't put in mountains either. We didn't have to fix that. So this is a risky hand. We need to draw a land, and it needs to be a green one. But our opponent goes first, so we draw a card on the first turn. We also draw a card off of Vantasar. So we dig 2 cards deep on turn 1 trying to hit a green source, and on turn 2 we draw another card. So if there is a green source in the top 3 cards, we're good, and if there's not, we're in a very bad spot. I don't think statistically we can rely on having a green source in the top 3 cards. I think this is just a mulligan. It would be a pretty greedy keep. This is a very safe hand. Super happy about this one. We have all of our colors thanks to the Triome. We have Farfinder to grab the second blue source for the ultimatum, and then we've already got, triple green, 1 black. Pretty good start here. Keep this, and I think we actually get rid of a forest here. Because we have 3 mana already, we have a 4th off of Farfinder. We don't have anything bigger than 3 mana to play yet. Opponent starts off with a mountain. We draw into a bristling boar that we will be able to cast thanks to Farfinder. So now we do have a decently sized creature to play instead of just a couple 1/1s throughout the game. Playing against red-white could be red-white cycling. Alright, this is going to be a terrifying start. Definitely putting this deck through the ringer immediately. Going to put it against the highest competition we can and see how well it fares. Red-white cycling, the menace of the format, and they start off with Janeth Stinger, so we're in for a world of hurt here. +2/+2 and a flying counter as well, so we cannot block that anytime soon. Drawing the deadweight is exceptional here. Although if I deadweight, I don't get to cast Farfinder. It's still pretty much definitely worth it to stem the bleeding. And we get to hit them for 1, and I think I will just be cycling the Greater Sandworm here. And that way it's possible, or at least more likely, that we hit a 4th land and be able to immediately cast Bristling Boar. Because we're quite a bit of mana away from 7, so I don't think we're casting the Sandworm anytime soon. So by the time we have enough lands to cast Sandworm, it's pretty equally likely that we'll have drawn a reanimation spell and be able to do that instead. So we did draw the land to be able to play Bristling Boar. Bristling Boar doesn't attack into a 3/1 well, but still solid here. We could also just go for the Dark Bargain, try to draw our better plays. I actually kind of like that. Just hold back the Brushwag to block this Sabertooth. We are definitely going to have bigger, more explosive plays than just a red-white aggressive deck. So I think we want to play it to where we're just trying to draw our big explosive stuff. We're not going to try to aggro them out with a 4/3. Alright, Sanctuary Smasher to give first strike here. If they don't have a second trick, we can just eat their Sabertooth by making Brushwag a 4/4. So I'm going to try to do that rather than the Dark Bargain. That was the plan. Alright, well that worked pretty well. I was going to just offer the trade if they didn't do any funny business there, and we did draw Unbreakable Bond, so that is going to be incredible here. 7/7 lifelink can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Wonderful draw. Easily the play. If they can't kill the Sandworm, we are going to gain 7 life and be at above our starting life total here. Just having an absolute field day. They do have the Blade Banish to go ahead and kill the Greater Sandworm. We don't have anything to counter that, so it just resolves and we poke in for 1 here. So I could Dark Bargain, try to hit something like Emergent Ultimatum, some big play. Don't have the mana for that anyway, though, so I could just play a Skull Prophet so I can start attacking for 3 now. Yeah, I like Skull Prophet and Farfinder because now we get to cast two things. We get a lot closer to our really big spells if we draw any of those. Because now we have, what, 4, 5, 6? We're going to have 7 mana on board. Grabbing the island, because with Skull Prophet being able to tap for black, we can go black, black, green, 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 blue, blue, and I'm glad I grabbed the island because we're just going to cast Emergent Ultimatum. Incredible draws here, this game. So Titanoth Rex, Greater Sandworm, just the 3 biggest creatures in the deck. They have to give us 2 of them. And Honey Mammoth. Oh, they give us Titanoth Rex and Greater Sandworm. All right, let's do it. Emergent Ultimatum has resolved in our first game. Alright, and our opponent is cycling a Coordinated Charge, just digging for answers here. Cycle the Evantisar. Pretty much dead on board here, right? They can tap down the 11/11, but then they take 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We can buff Brushwag once. So that's 4 more. We can hit for 15. They're not dead on board if they tap down our 11/11. But they're very close. I think I just get in that extra damage here, because I think the only way that we lose this game is if they can Wrath us, so I don't want to put more creatures out here. And there's the concession. Even if they had a Zenith Flare there, they just hit us for 9, gain 9. So they would still be at dead next turn, and wouldn't be enough to kill us. That was a ridiculous game. Really lucky draws. Very, very solid showing from Sultai Reanimator. Grab a drink here between rounds. Okay, we are on the play here. We have turn 2 Skull Prophet to mill ourselves to maybe reanimate something with Unbreakable Bond. This is definitely a keep. Don't know how well this will pan out, but it looks pretty solid. Unfortunately, we don't have a creature to mutate onto with the Great Horn, so we can't grab a land with that to help cast Ultimatum, which is a bit of a bummer, because we're actually kind of close to casting it. We just need blue sources. Springjaw Trap is the play from our opponent. Costs 4 mana to sacrifice that to do 3 damage to something. Probably would rather hit them for 3 than mill ourselves 2 right now. Might play a Great Horn next turn as a 3/4, and then on turn 5 we'll maybe mill ourselves and hope to hit something for Bond. Ooh, Honey Mammoth is the draw. I think we just keep going for the early damage here. Get that Great Horn out. If we draw into our Glowstone Recluse, we can still grab a land off of the Great Horn by mutating that onto it, but it's not looking likely that we'll be playing Emergent Ultimatum anytime soon. Alright, Springjaw Trap going to go ahead and kill the Skull Prophet, so we can just keep bashing in here. Could reanimate the Skull Prophet. If I don't do that, I'm not doing anything this turn, but it's almost definitely better to just hold on to this, because we know at the very least we'll be able to reanimate like a 6/6 with this, which is a much bigger impact. And there's the first blue for Emergent Ultimatum, as well as the mana we need for Honey Mammoth, so that's great. biggest argument for just slamming down the Unbreakable Bond is to press our aggressive advantage here. But because we have Emergent Ultimatum in hand, we know even if we don't win off of the early aggression, we have an incredible late game card to play to try to just blow things up in our favor in a massive way. So I think we have the late game super on lock. So just go for the best value plays every turn here and not try to like super aggro out to where things might go a little wrong. All right, well, it does successfully wall us off a little bit. We're at 23 here, so we still definitely attack with both, but pretty soon they get to start tapping Honey Mammoth down every turn, which is not great. Alright, they're going to keep gaining life there. Still don't think it's worth the Unbreakable Bond on the 3-1. That doesn't really do much for us. I guess we bring back the 3-1. We get to attack with a 3-4 and a 3-1. They tap that down. We attack for 6 still. Maybe should have went for the Unbreakable Bond earlier. Are there good counterspells in Ikoria? Yes, but our opponent just has a Thornwood Falls here, so I wouldn't expect it out of this deck. There aren't like great ones. There's Convolute, counter something unless somebody pays 4, or Essence Scatter, counter a creature for 2. I'm just gonna go for the Unbreakable Bond here, actually. If they play like big creatures to block with and this doesn't pan out, then we're just still on that Emergent Ultimatum plan, waiting for another blue, which could be Farfinder, Fertilid, Island, Zagoth Triome, Dismal Backwater. I think we have like 8 cards we could draw to get the next blue. Might be a little bit of an exaggeration. But it's possible we get enough mana here to where they can't even counter Emergent Ultimatum. With a Convolute, that could be good. Well, it looks like they're going to hold off with the Everquill Phoenix so that they can block our stuff here. Which is fair enough. We'll just pass then. If they have double blue, there is a counter spell for 2 blue and 1 that just says counter a spell, period. But off of the 1 blue, I'm not super worried for our ultimatum. Bristling Boar's coming out. I'd expect an attack from the Phoenix now, because now their plan's probably to tap down Honey Mammoth, trade Bristling Boar for the Skull Prophet. I don't think we have a reason to be milling ourselves here, so I don't really want to. Hey Ryvoke, how's it going? It's going pretty well here. We got a pretty fun kind of Golgari Reanimator deck going on, with a blue splash for Emergent Ultimatum. We have a couple islands, a Triome, some duels, and like Fertilid and Farfinder, that kind of stuff. And those are like all of our good draws right now because we have Emergent Ultimatum just chilling here. So that's what we're waiting for. This has been a really cool deck, though. This is round 2 here. We won the first game against a red-white cycling deck, sort of. Didn't really pay any of the big red-white cycling payoffs, though. Sort of just a red-white aggro deck. Ooh, Greater Sandworm. Don't mind if I do. Alright, so they tap down Honey Mammoth. We trade profits here, and I drop down a Greater Sandworm. Sleeves filling the 2 colors you don't have? True. True. Do I want to trade profits? Yeah, because then they don't have a chump blocker for Greater Sandworm. It's probably fine. We're not milling ourselves. We're not adding any mana off of that profit. It's not really accomplishing anything for us. So now they tap down Greater Sandworm and Honey Mammoth gets to attack, which then Everquill Phoenix dies and they sacrifice the feather to bring it back, I guess. Oh no, Capture Sphere. Alright, Greater Sandworm's down from that. Honey Mammoth keeps getting tapped down by the checkpoint officer. I like holding one land in hand just in case. They have the Mutator that makes me discard a card. Bristling Boar coming out. Everquill Phoenix definitely putting in work here. We're dead in 4 attacks to it now. There's Titanoth Rex to just hardcast that. They could have Essence Scatter here because of the blue. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Just play it. Yep, this one's shaping up to be a loss, and there's not much we could do here. We could have unbroken. The only decision I think we could have really done was to Unbreakable Bond our Skull Prophet earlier. That would have chipped in for a little more damage, so we would have gotten them down to like 6 instead of 9. But either way, they'd have the life-linking Everquill Phoenix just shredding us at the end. And now they have an unblockable Bristling Boar plus Everquill Phoenix for lethal. So, kind of just a sad game here. Everquill Phoenix lifelinking us out of the game. Turning things around there, so that puts us to 1-1. Not a great start, but it's average, 50-50. I think this deck is potentially really good though. Like, it has so much explosive potential. I think we can definitely still rally to a 7-win run here. We'll see. I'll keep this hand because we have so much expensive stuff in this deck. So having a bunch of lands isn't that bad. Ooh, and now we do have a turn to Skull Prophet as well. Yeah, we definitely have enough mana now to make anything we draw off the top a potential play. Even having the double blue for the Emergent Ultimatum now, because we have a blue from Zagoth Triome as well as a blue from Farfinder if we grab an island. Our opponent is off to an aggressive start. General's Enforcer, good for a deck with a lot of legendary humans. Kind of want to make the trade here. We're not really ramping. I mean, we could play Bristling Boar next turn. I guess we can ramp into the Sandworm. I'm kind of more scared about dying to early aggression than not ramping out super fast. I guess if we just take 2 damage here though, Bristling Boar is big enough to block General's Enforcer without dying. Night Squad Commando is the play. Yeah, let's get the Bristling Boar out here. We're at 4 mana now, so we're at 5 next turn. Play a Farfinder. We're 3 turns away from Greater Sandworm. Probably try to hold on to the Skull Prophet here. Yeah, we're definitely getting aggroed. Luckily the 4-3 big enough to kind of cause a little bit of a ceasefire there. Got plenty of forests and swamps, so we'll just grab the island there. For the Emergent Ultimatum. Clash of Titans. That is brutal. Our 3-1 fights our 4-3 that clears the board. We just have a 1-1. Could cycle Greater Sandworm here, because now since Skull Prophet's going to die, we're not going to have Greater Sandworm mana until 3 turns from now. We're going to be very dead by then. Yeah, we should probably cycle Greater Sandworm, hoping to draw into Unbreakable Bond to get a 7/7 lifelink out. Something like that. But yeah, we're getting beaten up by the Mardu deck here. Well, Cycle of Antisaur it is. Jungle Hollow gains us 1 life, so we don't die immediately. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go to 3. Another Ferocious Tigorilla. We don't really have a board wipe in this deck, so I don't think anything can save us now. Does that save us? No, the Tigerillas have Menace, so they don't have to attack with anything we could gain life off of. Unfortunately, they just attack with a single Menace creature and we die. That'll do it here. We'll try anyway. Maybe they make a little bit of a misplay and just send in with everybody. But actually, I think we still die if they send in with everybody. We block there, gain 7. We go to 10 life, we take 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we still die to an all attack. But yeah, by just attacking with the Menace creatures, we don't even get to do the lifelink there. Brutal game there. I don't think we had much of a shot, but our biggest decisions that could have panned differently there is if we had traded the Skull Prophet off immediately. The idea with not trading it off immediately was that we could ramp into our Bristling Boar to put a 4/3 down to stop them from attacking the next turn, which did work out. We had a Bristling Boar out and they didn't attack in the next turn, but it didn't actually pan out in the long run. Well, it did pan out immediately. It didn't pan out in the long run because by having a 3/1 and a 4/3 out, they got to use Clash of the Titans to kill both of them. There's no way we could have foreseen that, but in a world in which we did trade off Skull Prophet for their 2/3 immediately, we might have survived like one more turn, potentially got an Emergent Ultimatum or something. But I think even then we don't end up winning that game. This one is a definite keep. We have all 3 of our colors. We have a Migratory Greathorn to ramp up. We even have a removal spell, a Ram Through here. Get that turn 1 almighty Brushwag out. The unbeatable Brushwag. Turn 2 Skull Prophet is a great draw. Now we're curving out super well. Turn 1 Brushwag, turn 2 Skull Prophet, turn 3 Greathorn. There's an Unbreakable Bond to bring back our Vantasaur, if nothing else. Kind of fun. Kind of fun. I think I'm just going to go for the Greathorn here, though. Could be a Fire Prophecy here. They might want to kill the Brushwag. If they kill the Brushwag, we still get the Greathorn onto the board, but we don't get a basic land anymore. Put it on top here. For the highest power toughness. We have a lot of cards that require 2 green mana. Like Greater Sandworm, Honey Mammoth, Proud Wildbonder, that kind of stuff. Emergent Ultimatum does need double blue. I guess we have Skull Prophet giving us a green or a black here, but Skull Prophet is a creature, so it's very killable. I'm just going to grab a forest here. It's not going to pan out in the long run if we do draw Emergent Ultimatum before we draw another blue, but we're a lot more likely to draw a card that needs double green and lose our Skull Prophet somehow. Just because we have a lot more cards with double green. Thieving Otter, and we immediately draw the perfect Deadweight to get that off the board. Yeah, I like Deadweight instead of Ram Through. Ram Through can kill more things. It does 3 damage right now. That's already more than Deadweight can kill. And I'll go ahead and cycle this Vantasaur, see if we draw anything good. Glowstone Recluse is good. We can mutate that onto the Great Horn too to grab another land and get some +1/+1 counters, but I could also just play it as another 2/3. I think I just hold on to it and mutate it next turn. More lands is always nice. And casting it this turn would require tapping Skull Prophet instead of hitting them for 3 with it. Proud Wild Bonder, we can kill that with a Ram Through. We can do that right now to just get lethal. Shoot for 3. We've got 6 on board. Glowstone Recluse adds 2 more to that. With 2 +1/+1 counters. Alright, 2 and 2, I think. Actually, we did get some pretty rough losses against that very aggressive deck and the Lifelink and Phoenix. Gonna have to fight really hard to pull a 7-win run out of this deck now, but I think this deck deserves it. It's so fun and so powerful, potentially. Gotta put in the potentially in there because we have lost 2 games already. Maybe my deck evaluation is all hazy just based on how cool the deck looks. But man, like, we have great mana fixing and ramp for the Emergent Ultimatum. We have great massive creatures for the Emergent Ultimatum. We have multiple cycling big cards for the Reanimator spells. We have like 2 deadweights for early game removal. Just kind of have a lot of great stuff going on in this deck. And we're just going to cycle Vantasaur immediately because we never cast that. And draw a Skull Prophet. Nice. Also a Zagoth Triumph. If I play that here, I'm not playing Skull Prophet though, so we definitely go with the Prophet first. There are gems in the daily deals. Thank you very much for telling me, Ryvoke. I will have to scoop those up here. I'm not going to attack my 3/1 into their 1/3 because the mana ramp is important here when we have a 7 and 9 mana card in hand. So since I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to play a tapped land and a Farfinder to grab more mana. And I am going to take the Forest here again. We have multiple double green cards in our hand. I guess we already have the Triumph for the double green. But we have a lot more green cards in the deck. I could see a turn where we end up playing a double green and a 1. Probably should have grabbed the blue. You think you expect the deck to do all the work and play worse? Overconfidence. That can happen. That can happen. I think we've been playing solid here. But our opponents have just been destroying us anyway. 2/2 is not being destroyed. That's 50-50. We're just an average run. But I absolutely love this deck. We have 5 mana now. They have Exuberant Wolf Bear. They make a human a 4/4 when it attacks. That's not very good for us, is it? So I can either Dark Bargain, or I can Bristling Boar. If I Bristling Boar, I can trade my Bristling Boar for their Wolf Bear. Maybe double block the Naturalist, but I probably just take 4. I think I just play Bristling Boar, so I have something to trade when they send in the Wolf Bear. And then we do have a Dark Bargain coming up here. We're going to have 6 mana next turn, only 1 mana away from Sandworm next turn. And Dark Bargain should definitely hit another land for us if we need it. Going to attack with just the Wolf Bear here. I'll offer the trade with the Boar, but they're on mono green right now, so I'd expect they have like fully grown some kind of crazy combat trick. Looks like just the trade. I'll accept it. Gigantha, 5 mana 5/5 that taps for 1 mana of every color. Well, if they were having mana issues before, they are no longer. Yep, that's every color of mana. It's also a 5/5, so they could just start attacking us with that. Fertilid is the draw that definitely ramps us up. So we can cast Fertilid, we have 3 mana up, so we can cast this and ramp up with it, so we know we get to cast Greater Sandworm next turn. Seems good to me. Excuse me. My stomach's angry at me. I haven't eaten anything yet today. Sometimes Sometimes it's going to be loud about it. The companions are eroded in drafts as well. You do have to spend 3 generic mana to put it from your companion zone into your hand. I guess now we know for sure, though, they have cards that are double green. Yeah, there's Honey Mammoth. But we could already expect that much from a mono green deck. So Giganta doesn't give us that much information. And now we've seen the double green card, so not really much we can do with that information, but we can figure it out. Oh, they are other colors. Deadweight coming in to kill the Skull Prophet. So we don't get to Greater Sandworm next turn. Sad. Yet again, I don't think we mill ourselves because we have these massive creatures. If we draw a Reanimator spell, we can just cycle in 11/11 and reanimate that. So we don't need to mill anything. So I'd rather not. Doesn't actually give us any value. Deadweight is our draw, so we can deadweight as well, but they just have a 6/6 and a 5/5 out, so that doesn't do much for us. So 6 mana. We can cast a Dark Bargain and still use Fertilid's ability. If I cast a Dark Bargain, is there anything for 2 mana or less that I could draw that I would want to cast immediately? I have Skull Prophet, Ram Through, Brushwag, Deadweight. Might want to cast another Skull Prophet, so I guess I could go for it here. Probably won't. Well, let's see what we have. Back for More. Definite pickup here. And that makes it so I might want to just cycle Titanoth Rex for 2. Let's draw the Back for More. Probably the Proud Wild Bonder. Yeah, because Proud Wild Bonder plus Titanoth Rex, that's the thing I wanted to do, because then Titanoth Rex is 11 power that they can't stop from hitting them. Yeah, that could be fun. Alright. So now we probably end up chump blocking with Fertilid and cycling Titanoth Rex. Probably have to chump block with 2 things, but then we can back for more at instant speed the next turn they declare attacks to return an 11/11, have their 11/11 kill one of these things and block the other one. I guess this does add up to 11, so we would have to trade there, unfortunately. Yeah, that's maybe not super good, but it's still pretty good. So chump block with Fertilid. Chump block with Farfinder as well, or do I not block at all? I could also see not blocking. Because if I take 11 here, it's painful, but we go down to 7. Still enough life that we're not going to randomly die to a burn spell or anything. And then that leaves me more open to be able to cast Back for More to bring back Titanoth Rex without having to immediately kill my Titanoth Rex by blocking both of those. Because then like next turn I can like shoot that and then chump block there. Yeah, we'll chump block later, I think. Just deadweight one, you'd have the mana with Fertilid this turn. I can't deadweight one and reanimate Titanoth Rex with Back for More because I have to spend 2 mana to cycle Titanoth Rex. I have to cycle Titanoth Rex, and so I can't use Fertilid's ability here. I can deadweight one if I draw another land. So that would be a pretty good draw. Now I'm terrified. Now they're just spreading out the board. And Fiend Artisan can grab the best creature out of their deck at whatever mana cost every turn. Turn Humble Naturalist into their best 3-drop, because they've got the 4 mana for that. They even have Giganta, so that's terrifying, actually. Oh dear. Let's cycle Titanoth Rex. Farfinder's now a trample. Draw Migratory Greathorn. We did draw land, so yeah, we can deadweight. I honestly think I'd rather deadweight Fiend Artisan now, though. Now that that's on the board, because of how explosive that can be, especially with Gigantha's ability. Yeah, their post-combat plays really changed things here, but that was a really solid line, Rivoke. Just deadweight one of them so we can back for more, kill both the big creatures there. Yeah, I think Fiend Artisan is super devastating here. So now if they attack all, chump block the 5/5, actually probably chump block the 6/6, block there, back for more, Titanoth Rex kills Gigantha, blocks Naturalist. And if they just attack with a couple of them, then we just block a little less than that. Suffocating Fumes to kill all our creatures. Might just die. I can kill Honey Mammoth off of the fight and then block Humble Naturalist. So we take 2 and go to 5, and they just have Gigantha and a Boot Nipper. Actually could be fine. It depends on if they're doing anything else with the rest of their mana here. Exuberant Wolf Bear. Pretty scary, but it doesn't attack us immediately. The Death Touch is really annoying when our 1/1s are all gone now. I guess I get to kill Wolf Bear and Honey Mammoth here. Because that's 10. So Titanoth Rex survives. We take 2, go to 5. Play more blockers here. Yeah, fight Bear, block Mammoth. Now we can cast... I don't really want to cast Greater Sandworm because I don't want to trade off a big creature to this Boot Nipper. I want to play a 3/4 here. We have enough mana to play both of these. So I think we play these two. We could also send in the attack for 11, and if we don't immediately die, they can't stop Titanoth Rex from doing 22, but we need to hit them 3 times with Titanoth Rex to kill them. I think Greater Sandworm is going to be our way to try to win this game. I think we just play these two to stabilize because we're at such a sketchy life total against their board. And then we just sit here. And then after this, we play Greater Sandworm, start attacking with Sandworm, because Sandworm can get past the Death Toucher. Their only way they can block Sandworm is the Gigantha. And then eventually Titanoth Rex can just send in for 11 damage that they can't stop because of Proud Wild Bonder. That's all that's our magical Christmas land dreams where they don't interact in any way from this point on. Ooh, if they send in the Death Toucher, we can just kill it right now. And I'm fine with that. And then we might actually just start attacking with Titanoth Rex immediately. Because we'll have a Greater Sandworm to block with as well. Oh, that explains that attack. Another Death Toucher it is. One more card in hand for our opponent. With Gigantha, they pretty much have whatever mana they could need, so not sure what it'll be. Dark Bargain. The 2 life cost on Dark Bargain's getting really scary here. I think, again, we're just going to be as safe as possible. Play the Greater Sandworm. Jesus, my stomach is just going off today. Sequels are no fun. Yeah, Boot Nipper round 2. Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, I'm not trading Titanoth for that. I'm going to start attacking with Sandworm if I attack with anything. Which all depends on if they play another card here. Corpse Churn. What is their best creature in grave? Honey Mammoth, right? Oh no, Fiend Artisan. Fiend Artisan would be a 6/6 and let them keep ramping into other stuff. Just another Death Touch. I guess they're very scared of our Titanoth Rex, which is fair. Boot Nipper 3, Return of the Boots. Yeah, it's happening. Very accurate. Oh no, I see what they're doing. Oh, that's disgusting. They're like, hey, you're at 5 life. I can just force trades on attacks here. I don't even need them on the defense. Ruthless. Ruthless opponent here. And a bristling boar as well. Oh dear. Dark Bargain is pretty terrifying here, but I don't think we have much of a choice. Yeah, we don't have a choice really. If they attack with everybody, we block there, take 3. We have to draw a creature immediately off of Dark Bargain, or Dark Bargain kills us if they attack all. But if we don't Dark Bargain, they get to attack with Boot Nipper, we block that, and we only have an 11/11 left. And then next turn they attack all and we die. Because we can only block 1. We block the 5/5 and then the 4/3 and the 1/3 kill us. Yeah, I think we have to do it. It's gonna be real painful. I really want to gain life. I really want that Honey Mammoth. Is Fertilid or Glowstone Recluse better to play right now? Fertilid's big enough to trade with the Boot Nipper, and the Glowstone Recluse isn't big enough to trade with anything. So I kind of want the Fertilid. Because they're both big enough to trade with the Boot Nipper, and the Fertilid can trade with it and get us a land. So I'm going to grab Fertilid Honey Mammoth. And then we play Fertilid. We're going to make a chump block or a trade with that. At 3 life here, can I attack with Greater Sandworm? Send that in, they attack all. Block 5. Or block 3. No, we can't. Can't attack till we play this Honey Mammoth. But then we might be able to, thanks to the gain 4. Boot Nipper the third coming in hot here. No attacks because they know Fertilid just trades for that. A 1/1 accomplishes pretty much just as much as a 2/2 here. A 2/2 can block Humble Naturalist without dying, though. But the vast majority of the time, we're just going to trade with the Boot Nipper, so I think I want to get a land out of our deck. Just to make it more likely to draw into gas. We already have double blue, triple green, double black. We have everything we need for Ultimatum, so it doesn't really matter here. I guess I'll take another swamp. Alright, so now we have Honey Mammoth to gain a bunch of life. Gain a bunch of life. If we attack with Greater Sandworm, now they can trade it for just Giganta, so I don't think we have a great attack here. Because we attack with Greater Sandworm, they block with both now. Giganta and Bristling Boar. Yeah, I think we just play a Honey Mammoth. Getting pretty low in terms of cards in our library here. We might mill out this game. If Giganta leaves this board, does that really help us that much? Then on our next attack, we kill the Boot Nipper, and then maybe we eventually start swinging in. We really need to draw like one more card to hit critical mass and have more cards than they do. The good guys don't mill out. I haven't milled myself out in Limited in a long time. We'll see. At least I'm glad I wasn't milling myself with Skull Prophet. And it made it even faster. Do I have another Dark Bargain left? No, I've used both my Dark Bargains. What do we even have left at this point? We still have Emergent Ultimatum, but what do we have to grab with it? We have a Greater Sandworm, an Unbreakable Bond, a Ram Through, a Deadweight, and a Skull Prophet. Well, Unbreakable Bond would be pretty awesome. As would Emergent Ultimatum, as would Ram Through. Ram Through might just kill them. Then we just attack all and Ram Through hits them for 10. Titanoth Rex onto Boot Nipper, and they don't have a Death Toucher anymore. Yeah, Ram Through is by far the best card we could draw here. Uh-oh. Unless they kill Titanoth Rex right now. I think Ram Through would still be our best draw to get the Death Toucher out of the way, because Ram Through isn't a fight spell, it just deals damage. Unbreakable Bond, no. Now they get themselves a very big life linker and gain some more life. It's not awesome. Not the end of the world, though. Gain some more life. And yeah, we have to just keep passing. Ooh. Can we do this? If we get rid of this Death Toucher, how much does that help us? Here we attack with Titanoth Rex. That trades off with Giganta and Honey Mammoth now. Then they have nothing. They've got a 4-3 and a 1-3 left. Yeah, I'd say that helps us. I'd say that still really helps us. Also puts them down to 18. Can't really afford to attack with more than one creature now, though, because if I attack with Titanoth Rex and they just don't block, I'm at 8 here, so I block the 6-6, I block there, take 1. Attacking with 2 gets really risky, because then I block the 6-6, I block the 5-5, I take 5. So if they have a +3/+3 pump spell, attacking with 2 creatures kills me. If they have a removal spell, attacking with 2 creatures kills me. But attacking with 1 is still alive to either of those things, just barely. So I think we attack with just Titanoth Rex. And the only trade they can make here is being able to kill both their 6-6 and their 5-5, which clears the way for our other big threats. Now they can't even kill either of those on double blocks. Whew. Ram Through was definitely the best draw we could have gotten in our deck, and we did get there. On that front, at least. We'll see how things pan out from now on. I am sure our opponent also has some pretty gas draws they could hit here, and maybe even have the pump spell in hand right now to not lose both their creatures here. But it looks like no pump spell for the opponent, so I am pretty happy here. Now we definitely have the lead on board. Well, we definitely don't in live total. They have finally hit the swamp. Their mana situation was pretty awkward, but thanks to Humble Naturalist and Giganta, they still were able to have that mana. Don't think there's any reason to deadweight here. They can't double block and kill there. They can't double block and kill there. They only have 5 damage on board. They need both a pump spell and a removal spell to kill me. So I could attack both here, unless they have a pump spell and a removal spell. If they just removal spell, we take 5, go to 3. If they just pump spell, block there, they give +3/+3, we take 7, go to 1. Yeah, I think we attack both here. Try to kill them quickly, so it gives them less time to draw into something explosive. If I wanted to be really safe, I could immediately cast Deadweight on Bristling Boar, and then even if they somehow have the +3/+3 pump spell and the removal spell, we survive. I would expect an attack from Bristling Boar here that we will trump with Fertilid and dig another land out of our deck. We still have 9 cards left, and now we're racing them pretty well, so I am cool to dig lands out of the deck. Don't know if I'm cool to cast Emergent Ultimatum, though, because then we go down to like 4 cards left? 5? Yeah, we'd have 8, we'd cast Emergent Ultimatum, and then we'd be at 5 cards left. That would be pretty sketchy. Okay, now they have enough power and toughness to kill Greater Sandworm on a double block, or kill Honey Mammoth on a double block, but we'd kill both the creatures on either of those blocks. If I deadweight a Bristling Boar, then Greater Sandworm can only be blocked if they chump block with a Bristling Boar. Against 2 Bristling Boars, I'm a little worried about the crackback here. Some might only want to attack with 1 creature, and casting a deadweight and attacking with Greater Sandworm seems pretty good in that situation. Although if I do attack with both Sandworm and Honey Mammoth, they have to block one of them, or else they're taking 13, which is lethal. So I reasonably could attack both here without much fear of a crackback. Then I get both the boars off the table. I think it's probably best to leave as many of our threats on the board as possible, so just attack with Sandworm. They take 7 here, or have to chump block. So yeah, now they're down to 4. And the boar is small enough that even a Fertilid can trade with it if they go for any attacks. They have 7 power on the board here, so again, they need multiple removal spells and pump spells to find lethal. Alright, cycle the easy prey. Don't have any creatures that cost 2 or less, so that doesn't kill anything. Another land for them. May just be the pass turn here. Emergent Ultimatum. And so now they have to chump block Greater Sandworm, and the only way to do that is by blocking with Bristling Boar. So if we attack with Honey Mammoth, they have to chump block that too. And Honey Mammoth can't die because they can't choose to double block. They have to block this Bristling Boar onto Greater Sandworm. It's the only creature that can. And even if they had some pump spell trick way to block both of these, now we can just Emergent Ultimatum worst case scenario and get more creatures that way. We only have 7 cards left in deck, so we don't have a lot more creatures, but you know, do the thing. Search for up to 3 mono-colored cards. An opponent chooses one of them, and it goes back in. So we can actually only cast 1 spell with this now, because we only have Greater Sandworm and Unbreakable Bond left. We only have 2 mono-colored cards left in the deck. 7 cards left. We mill 2 out. Go to 5. We can definitely find lethal here. They just let us cast Greater Sandworm, because if they let us cast Unbreakable Bond, we just play an 11/11 Trample Lifelink. And that is incredibly bad for them. Yeah, so that was just taking 1 more card out of the deck. We still have 6 in library, definitely worth the ultimatum. Another land for our opponent, and it looks like the bit of a flood out at the end is going to turn into a victory for us, putting us at 3-2 in Diamond Tier 3 here. I was really worried about that one the whole way through, pretty much. Very long, very hard-fought game, but that puts us to 3-2, so even if we lose the next round, get a 50-50 out of this one. Again, though, this deck is super fun and pretty powerful, and I want to take this deck as far as it can go. So we'll see how things pan out heading into round 6 here. Do need to grab another drink. I might do a little pause, a little break here in the middle after this round. If we lose this round, I definitely will, because that's a really easy break point just in between drafts there. Nobody's playing Ikoria right now. Everybody's playing the Strixhaven draft challenges. All right. Round 6, let's go. We have Zagoth Triumph with an early deadweight Farfinder to grab a land and a late game Emergent Ultimatum. Hand is very sweet if we make it to that ultimatum, and we have a couple tools to help get there. Deadweight preventing early aggression, and Farfinder grabbing some of the lands we need. Opponent's choosing whether to mulligan here. Pretty rough choice for them, it seems. It might be having connection issues or something, because that went completely to time, I think. Alright, they are back, starting off with a swamp. And green-black from them as well. Could be a bit of a mirror match here. Well, I could Farfinder here, but I don't have a play on turn 4 anyway, so I would rather kill this Essence Symbiote before it gets any mutate value. This also stops them from playing a 3-mana mutator, because they won't have a creature on board to do so if they have like a Migratory Greathorn. And I do have the mana to cast a Farfinder and a Deadweight next turn if we want to do that. Uh-oh, probably green-black Reanimator here. There's the Void Beckoner, the black, large, uncommon cycling creature that you can reanimate well. But we have got the green one in hand now, so that's pretty nice if we draw a reanimation spell. Farfinder grab an island here. Gets us very close to the mana we need for Emergent Ultimatum, and the Zagoth Triumph helps with that so much, making pretty much any land drawn the mana we need. Yeah, we have double black, double green, double blue. Literally any land we draw, except a swamp, can get us to Emergent Ultimatum now. It'll take a few turns to play all those lands onto the field, but we've got the ultimatum confirmed in the future. Deadweight the Farfinder so we can't mutate onto it or anything. Dismal Backwater, perfect. We've got the mana we need now for sure. Don't have a 5-mana card to play, so no reason to play an untapped land this turn. Play Dismal Backwater. Next turn we go for the Honey Mammoth, and I'm even going to hold on to Titanoth Rex, not even cycle that, because we don't have a way to reanimate it anyway. We're getting close to making it to 9 mana. We have 6 already. Actually 7 already in hand. So, green-black, I would expect a lot of removal from our opponent here, so they might just start killing our stuff, but that's okay. We have reanimation spells in the deck. We're still going to try to play our biggest threats every turn, and of course, Emergent Ultimatum next turn will be absolutely massive, because getting multiple creatures out of that one card should be really, really good against just single targeted removal spells. Six mana from our opponent as well. They could have their own Honey Mammoth. Looks like Extinction Event. Incredibly happy to get that out of the way before Emergent Ultimatum resolves. We've gotten the board wipe out of here. And we just go for the Emergent Ultimatum. They don't have any blue mana, so this should definitely resolve. And we're going to grab the biggest cards we can from our deck, which we don't actually have a big creature in our grave, unfortunately, just a Farfinder in grave. So the biggest cards we can get here are going to be a Greater Sandworm, a Imposing Vantisar, I guess, and a Migratory Greathorn. We get Greathorn and Vantisar. We have drawn pretty awkwardly for this. We do have a Titanoth Rex in hand here, unfortunately. I guess I should have cycled Titanoth Rex so that Emergent Ultimatum could hit Unbreakable Bond for it. That could have been a thing. Might even grab a Dark Bargain here. So Greater Sandworm's going to get put back into our deck. They're not going to let us do that. Yeah, I think Vantisar's the next biggest creature. Unbreakable Bond isn't very good here. Yeah, get a 3-4 and a 3-6, I think, rather than playing another little draw spell here. Alright, so Greater Sandworm goes back. Greathorn and Vantisar get on the board. And while this is definitely the smallest ultimatum we've resolved, it's still good value. And there's a Greater Sandworm from our opponent. Now we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 mana, 1 mana away from Titanoth Rex. If they send in the Sandworm, we can take it and just start cracking back. Fertilid makes sure that we have Titanoth Rex mana next turn, so I like doing that. Deadweight doesn't really change much on Sandworm, turning it into a 5/5. Guess we could block it with Vantisar all day long if it's a 5/5, but it doesn't really help us get in or anything, so I don't think I'll do that. And don't want to play the Boar here. If I play the Boar, I don't have the mana to use Fertilid and end up casting Titanoth Rex next turn, and I really want to cast Titanoth Rex next turn. I think my biggest fear here would be them having a way to give lifelink to the Greater Sandworm. Dirge Bat. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker potentials. Oh my god, that is really good. Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, if that was just the one that made me sacrifice, we could probably find a way through that, but now every mutate card that they draw here destroys one of our cards. That's very, very rough. It also gives flying to the Greater Sandworm. There's a Skull Prophet from our opponent. Probably attacking in for 7 here. Yeah, because we just crack back for 3. Alright, resolves. Titanoth Rex is just going to die to this mutate effect. We need to draw into like Ram Through or something to kill that Sandworm here. If we can. Back for More can kill the Sandworm if they kill the Titanoth Rex, but not until they do so. I guess I could cycle it and then Back for More and kill it immediately. Do I have the mana to do that? Oh yeah, I've got 1,000,000 mana. Let's just do that. Yeah, that seems real good. Cycle. I also get to give Trample to Greathorn, which is fun. Now we Back for More, and we have the Deadweight mana. That's such a fantastic draw. That's actually ridiculous. Kill that, and then kill their only other card on board. They've got 1 card in hand against this board. Even if it's a big, just targeted removal spell that can kill Titanoth Rex, we're still in a great position. Yeah, they're just going to scoop them up there. That was an absolutely absurd twist of events at the end for them. They fought through the Emergent Ultimatum well, but the Back for More was incredible. So 4 wins and 2 losses there. I really thought I was going to lose that one. I thought we were out of it, but now we're at least the 4-3 here. Golgari Reanimator doing lots of stuff. Sultai Reanimator, I should say. The blue mana has been very important in most of the games because Emergent Ultimatum is such a powerful card. So I gotta give it credit where credit's due. Call it Sultai Reanimator. Okay. We're on the play here, but we don't really get to cast anything. We can cast Deadweight and cycle Greater Sandworm to help hit more lands. If we hit 4 lands, we have Dark Bargain coming out. If we get anything to mutate onto, we can grab a land off that too. I mean, Deadweight plus Sandworm cycling, I feel like gives us time to maybe make it to 3 or 4 mana. If we make it to 4, we can definitely get out of the mana situation with Dark Bargain. I'm gonna keep this one, but it's risky. Be honest. Certainly hoping to draw into lands with this hand. Farfinder would be an exceptional draw. Oof, Unbreakable Bond's a really good draw too. We can use that on our Greater Sandworm once we hit 5 mana. Alright, the first cycle's out of the way and we have not hit any more mana. So things are getting a little sketchy here, but we do have Deadweight on the Essence Symbiote, and we did luckily draw a land now. Just 1 away from double Dark Bargain. That will definitely get us to the rest of the mana that we need. We're playing a mirror match here against another green, black, and blue deck with a second Essence Symbiote. And Fertilid, another solid draw. We can use this to get the mana we need. Grab a bunch of green sources. Cavern Whisperer. That forces us to discard a card. Could discard Honey Mammoth here, and then I can reanimate that eventually because we're pretty far from casting it anyway. But I also don't think I'm going to end up casting 2 Dark Bargains here, because by the time I cast 1, I'll have enough mana to cast Unbreakable Bond, and that's definitely going to be my play in the next turn. I think I'm actually going to get rid of a Dark Bargain here. I'm going to mutate Greathorn onto Fertilid, possibly. So I can cast a Skull Prophet, I can use Fertilid's ability once, or I can mutate a Greathorn onto it. I think mutating a Greathorn onto it is better if I'm just planning to grab a land, because then I also have a big old 5/6. Yeah, I think we really need to grab a land, so I'm just going to mutate onto the Fertilid. Grab our second green source for Honey Mammoth, so we don't have to rely on Skull Prophet to get there. And we'll just attack because Cavern Whisperer has Menace, so we can't block that anyway. 1 mana away from the Unbreakable Bond on Greater Sandworm, get a 7/7 lifelink on this board. And then, of course, whenever we hit 6 mana, we can also gain 4 life when we cast Honey Mammoth, so a lot of good ways to try to race this Cavern Whisperer. Pouncing Shore Shark going on. They do bounce the Greathorn, which bounces Greathorn and Fertilid. Now we discard 1 card. We might just be all in on getting really lucky here now. And we just need a basic next turn to be able to cast Unbreakable Bond. If we can't cast Unbreakable Bond next turn, what are we doing? If we can't cast Unbreakable Bond, I don't think that we Dark Bargain, because we're going to take 6 here. So we'll be at 9 life, and if I Dark Bargain, I go to 7, take 6 more, I'm at 1. I kind of think I have to get rid of Honey Mammoth now, because if I don't hit that 5th land, I'm going to have to just poop out a Fertilid or a Greathorn, probably. Potentially go for the Dark Bargain. Oh, back for more. Oh, good lord, I need to hit that next land. 2 more lands for sure. Would be really good. Do we Dark Bargain so we know that we can Unbreakable Bond next turn? If I Dark Bargain right now, I go to 7. I take 6 more from Cavern Whisperer. And go to 1 life. But then I can Unbreakable Bond on Honey Mammoth. No, I just die if I Unbreakable Bond Honey Mammoth, because I would gain 4, but then they have a 6/6 Menace out, so I just cannot Dark Bargain here at all. I could Skull Prophet here, that's the only way that I know I have 5 mana next turn. But I need to have like 6 so that I can back for more instead. Probably should have mulliganed this hand, but that's about all I could do here. Yeah, just hit another non-land. So we can Unbreakable Bond, but we can't survive through it. Well, can we? No, gain 4, go to 7. We can take 1 more hit from Cavern Whisperer. Which we'll have to do, because it does have Menace. If they don't have a pump spell, that gives us 1 more turn. And then attacking with Honey Mammoth does gain us 6 life every turn, which can just completely mitigate Cavern Whisperer's damage. Gain just as much life as it does to us. Although if they mutate 1 more card, we do die because of Essence Symbiote. Alright. Yeah, we were tapped out, so they didn't even need to throw it on there. They could have thrown it on Cavern Whisperer and got there. But yeah, that super kills us. We get hit for 11, unblockable here. Actually ended up super close to stabilizing, because if we hit 1 more mana on our next turn, like if our next draw was a basic land, then we also back for more, get a Greater Sandworm out, kill the Cavern Whisperer, and gain 6 life per turn. So, did get out curved there with a nice aggressive mutate start, but it was closer than it looked. Our opponent was at 20 there, but we could have started doing some pretty explosive things very soon. So 4 and 3, not bad at all. Would have liked to see this deck do better. This is a really fun deck, and I think it has some really powerful options available. The mana base is pretty fantastic. Really explosive late game plays, as we've seen. The biggest fears in this deck is stumbling in the early game, and maybe should have mulliganed a little more aggressively because of that. But that will end the Ikoria quick draft. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those good things. Let the YouTube algorithm know that you're enjoying the content and want to see more. And Velden says hello, YouTube.